6 years ago, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle packed up their lives, walked away from royal duties, and eventually settled thousands of miles away in California. At the time, it felt permanent. They bought a mansion in Montecito. They built businesses in America. Their daughter Lilibet was born there. And for years, Harry repeatedly said he didn't feel safe bringing his family back to Britain without the level of security he believed they needed. But now, something has changed. Because Harry and Meghan are reportedly moving back to the UK. And they're not coming alone. Archie and Lilibet are coming too. In fact, the children have reportedly already been enrolled in a British school beginning this September. The Sussexs are expected to establish a private home in Britain while keeping their properties in California and Portugal. And that's where this story gets really interesting. Because this doesn't appear to be about Harry getting his old royal job back. It doesn't appear to be about Meghan suddenly deciding she wants to become a working Duchess again. The reason may actually be much more personal. Harry appears determined to give his children something they've barely had until now. A real relationship with their British family. And especially with their grandfather, King Charles. To understand why this is happening now, you have to look at what happened over the last few months. As recently as June, Harry's return to Britain with Meghan and the children was in serious doubt. Security had become an enormous sticking point. Harry had argued for years that he couldn't safely bring Meghan, Archie and Lilibet to Britain without appropriate protection. In June, representatives for Harry and Meghan said he was exploring every available option that would allow his children to visit Britain safely. And then, something remarkable happened. The family did come back. Harry, Meghan, Archie and Lilibet spent time in Britain this summer. And during that visit, something happened that had been extraordinarily rare in recent years. The children saw their grandfather. King Charles reportedly met Archie and Lilibet at Highgrove, in what was seen as another significant step in repairing the relationship between Harry and his father. Harry also took his family to Althorpe, the Spencer family estate where his mother, Princess Diana, grew up. Suddenly, Archie and Lilibet weren't just hearing stories about their father's childhood, they were actually experiencing that side of their family. And within weeks, reports began appearing that Harry wanted to spend much more time in Britain. First, it was reported that Harry was considering returning every few months. Now, the story has become much bigger. Harry and Meghan are reportedly establishing an actual home in Britain. And the biggest clue as to why they're doing it is Archie and Lilibet. The children are going to British school. This is the detail that completely changes the story. If Harry and Meghan were simply planning to spend more time in Britain for charity work or to see Charles, they could visit. They have the money, they have multiple properties. Harry regularly flies internationally. But enrolling Archie and Lilibet in school is something completely different. Archie is now 7 and Lilibet is 5, and according to the latest reports, both children are expected to begin school in Britain in September. That's not a holiday, that's putting down roots. And it means 2 children who have spent almost their entire lives in California could now grow up with a completely different connection to Britain. Think about how unusual their situation is. Their grandfather is the king. Their uncle is the future king. Their cousin George is expected to become king one day. They're grandchildren of Princess Diana. They're part of one of the most famous families in the world. And yet, Archie and Lilibet have spent most of their childhood thousands of miles away from almost all of it. That may finally be changing. And then there's Charles. There could also be another reason why Harry no longer wants to wait. Time. King Charles has been dealing with cancer since his diagnosis was announced in 2024. Whatever has happened between Harry and his father over the years, that reality changes things. Harry has spoken publicly about wanting reconciliation with his family, and now his actions seem to be moving in that direction too. The king was reportedly informed about Harry and Meghan's decision shortly before the news became public, and is said to welcome the opportunity to spend more time with the Sussex family privately. That is a huge change from where things stood only a few years ago. Because Charles hasn't had the opportunity to be a normal, regularly present grandfather to Archie and Lilibet, geography alone made that incredibly difficult. Montecito and London aren't exactly around the corner from one another. A visit has to be planned, flights have to be booked, security has to be arranged, schedules have to line up. But if Archie and Lilibet are actually living and attending school in Britain, everything changes. Seeing their grandfather doesn't have to be some enormous royal event. It can become part of their lives. And maybe Harry has realised that if he wants that relationship to exist, he can't keep waiting. Now, this is where we need to separate what is actually being reported from the speculation that's inevitably going to follow. Harry and Meghan are not reportedly coming back as working royals. They're expected to live in a private, non-royal residence. They remain financially independent. Harry can continue with Invictus, Wellchild, and his other projects. Meghan can continue building her businesses. And they're reportedly keeping their Montecito property as well. So this isn't Harry and Meghan crawling back to Buckingham Palace, asking for their old jobs. If anything, this could be Harry finally getting something closer to what he originally wanted. Remember what happened in 2020? Harry and Meghan didn't initially propose disappearing from Britain forever. Their original vision involved stepping back as senior royals, becoming financially independent, and dividing their time between Britain and North America. That arrangement didn't happen in the way they originally envisioned. Instead, the split became much more dramatic. They moved away. The Oprah interview happened. The Netflix series happened. Harry released Spare. Relationships deteriorated. And Britain became somewhere Harry mostly visited alone. Now, 6 years later, they may finally be creating a version of that transatlantic life. California isn't disappearing, but Britain is coming back into the picture. Meghan agreeing to this might be the biggest surprise. Harry wanting to spend more time in Britain isn't particularly surprising. This is where he grew up. His father is here, much of his mother's family is here, and many of the charities and causes he's remained connected to are still based in the UK. Meghan, though, is a different story. She's spoken openly about just how difficult her time within the royal system became, and when she and Harry eventually left, they didn't just step away from their official duties. They built an entirely new life, thousands of miles away in California. And for years, Meghan rarely returned to Britain. That's why her apparent willingness to move back with Archie and Lilibet feels significant. Something about the situation has clearly changed enough for Britain to become a realistic option again. Of course, the life she'd be returning to looks very different from the one she left behind. Meghan wouldn't be coming back as a working royal, following palace schedules or carrying out engagements on behalf of the crown. She and Harry would have their own home, their own careers, and far more control over how much of their lives intersect with the royal family. And that distinction could be exactly what makes this possible. Meghan can give her children a life in Britain, and Harry can be closer to his family, without either of them having to return to the royal system they decided to leave 6 years ago. But there's one very awkward problem, William. Because while Harry's relationship with Charles appears to be improving, there has been nothing comparable publicly between Harry and Prince William. The brothers remain estranged, and according to reports about the move, William and Catherine have been informed that Harry and Meghan are returning. Just imagine how strange this could become. Harry and William living in the same country again. Their children potentially growing up much closer geographically. Harry rebuilding his relationship with Charles. Archie and Lilibet spending more time around the wider family. And yet the two brothers themselves could remain barely involved in one another's lives. That's probably the next chapter of this story. Because moving back to Britain puts Harry physically closer to William than he has been in years. It doesn't guarantee reconciliation, but it certainly makes avoiding one another more complicated. So why are they really coming back? From everything being reported right now, this looks less like a royal comeback and more like a family decision. Harry wants Britain back in his children's lives. He wants Archie and Lilibet to know where he came from. He wants them to have a relationship with their grandfather. He appears to be rebuilding his own relationship with Charles, and after years of fighting over security, distance, and royal roles, he may finally believe there's a way to do that without giving up the independent life he and Meghan created. That's why the school decision matters so much. Harry can fly into London for a week and leave again. But Archie and Lilibet starting school there means something entirely different. It suggests that Britain isn't simply somewhere they're visiting anymore. It's becoming home. Maybe not their only home, maybe not forever, but home nonetheless. And for a couple whose departure from Britain became one of the biggest royal stories in decades, that's quite the reversal. 6 years after Harry and Meghan left royal life behind and headed for North America, their children could now be growing up, partly, in the very country their parents fought so hard to leave. The question is, what happens next? Does living closer to Charles finally repair Harry's relationship with his father? Do Archie and Lilibet develop relationships with George, Charlotte, and Louis? And eventually, does Harry being back in Britain force the conversation everyone has been waiting years for? A conversation with William. Because Harry and Meghan may insist this isn't a return to royal life, but once they're living back in Britain, with their children attending British school, and King Charles just a short journey away, keeping the Sussexes completely separate from the royal family becomes much harder. And that could be where this story gets really interesting. What do you think? Are Harry and Meghan really coming back for Archie and Lilibet and to repair their relationship with Charles? Or do you think there's another reason behind this sudden return to Britain? Let me know in the comments.